Well, welcome back to Living Electric. We've got a few guests on this week. We're here with Joseph, Nick, and David from DCC Electric. Joe and Nick are from Orange, but we've got all of them on the show to chat about what they're doing in the EV space, some really interesting stuff. So I'll pass it off to the three of you to do some quick intros about what you're working on and what your roles are.
Start with you.
All right. Well, so
I'm
Joseph. Yeah. I am the head of marketing and business development at Orange. We just raised a big round of funding. We were going to talk about that, but then one of our good friends came into the office today, and we thought, why not do something a little more interesting than just big up ourselves? So I'll we'll get to the mystery guest at the end.
Yeah. So my name is Nicholas. I'm the founder of Orange. Started the company 3 years ago. Been on a podcast with you guys before. It was Blast. And we're, mostly focused on multifamily charging. So we kind of, as Joseph said, our focus is that. And that kind of actually helps lead into David here, who has been in the space longer than Orange, helping solve this very difficult niche of multifamily charging. So I'll let him introduce himself.
Sure. Thank you, Nick. I'm David, the founder of RVE. We make a load balancing device to help people install chargers at a lesser cost. So we focus in single families and multifamily buildings and help EV owners get access to charging without needing a service upgrade. So charging at the right time of the day.
That's awesome. Well, I can see how you guys became connected. I mean, you guys are both solving an issue that really needs to be solved. That's really cool.
Yeah, actually, David and I met years ago at a conference in Montreal. Yeah. And that's where your company is based, right?
Yeah. We're based in Montreal, correct.
Where did the idea for RVE or DCC Electric come from? Was there did you have a specific experience in one of your own apartments, or?
Kind of. I came from the electrical industry, and back in 2014, I would say we saw a big need of, even if you were able to buy a big Tesla Model X or S, you would need a service upgrade to get charged at home. This would cost a lot of money, or even you couldn't do it because the utility would say no. So we figured out that it would be a great way to develop a product that would make it easier and be also code compliant to be able to install those chargers. So the DCC basically is a device that helps make the existing infrastructure smarter and is agnostic to any EV charger or outlets out there.
Wow, that's incredible. So
that maybe we'll explain a little bit how it works for the audience. I think because I think there's a nuance to that is really important of how you solved it, because it's actually pretty clever, and his ability to be hardware agnostic at the charger level has helped him kind of actually help solve what we've been talking about a lot, which is load balancing in buildings. And there isn't a good note around load balancing, which our actual conversation was like an hour ago before we started this podcast. With how hard it is to get all the players in the EV space that are like utilities and the national electric codes across not just here but Canada to be on the same page. So in the EV world, you guys have heard a lot about load sharing, and you go to Reddit and you watch people fight over like chargers need to be able to load share. But when you go to file a permit, there isn't a clear path to actually install load sharing. And so what he's done is found a kind of a hack around it with the way his product works. So I think it would helpfully explain it.
Yeah, it's a fairly simple way to do it, right? It's a relay. We monitor the actual load, and we will control the charger. And the reason why we're doing it this way is the safety aspect, right? So the building code and the electrical code we're dealing with were written 30, 40 years ago, and they haven't really evolved that much. So we're trying to make more room into the existing capacity while being compliant with hold regulator and past inspection, which is still a big gap.
So when all of your listeners go after this and they go Google DCC, it's like DCC 9 and DCC 10, I think you'll come up with the products if you Google it. And what it really does, just really clearly, is it monitors the current from a single meter into, let's say, an apartment complex or a single family home to the whole building. So they're like 80 to 100 amps, sometimes more.
Yep.
And so as that load, let's say you're not doing a lot at home, but you want to charge your car, it will keep the circuit on for the car, the charger on that circuit. Mm-hmm. But as the load for the house that you're monitoring goes up, and it's 80%, correct?
Yep.
Okay. 80%, it turns off the charger so that you can could keep using the load you didn't technically have because you were charging a car. And so that's the way they're kind of solving that load sharing. And so if you look, like I know, Joseph used to work at EverCharge. I don't think that's a secret. And so that's another company that has their own solution for like load sharing. And it's like one of the things that I think is really interesting in this space is a lot of companies have tried to solve it, but a lot of them say they solved it. And the reality is when you go look at the install, they actually have it because the code doesn't let them. They can't actually do an install with load sharing. So what's really clever about his solution, he has no networking. It's all like local to that box. And so that box is safety because it's literally just checking whether or not there's enough current on what circuit and safely switching between the two. There's a few other companies I think that you guys have probably heard of that have like dryer plug style ones. Mm-hmm. And so they're like more consumer, where his works really well. And I'm giving you a lot of plug here. I'm sorry.
That's the point.
Yeah. But it's really industrial, and that kind of comes back from your background because you came from an electrician's background. You've done a lot of actual electrical work, installing chargers with your parents, right? So your parents own an electrical contract company growing up. So his exposure is really interesting compared to a lot of us in the EV industry that come from like the technology world. He actually comes from the people that have to pull the wire and do the work, which is a really, I think, untalked about, unsexy part of this industry. That's actually the biggest hurdle in a lot of our installs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And they're hardware agnostic, which makes it easy for us to all be friends.
Yeah.
Right. Why we can be in the same room and be friends is we try to fix the same problem, get access within multi-unit dwelling buildings. So I think we have a similar mission, and we can achieve that working together more than against each other.
Oh, that's really cool. So is it universal then? Like, is the device itself universal? Like, it could be installed like in a brand new build, or like, say for example, like a 6-year-old home or building. Is that how it would work?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have multiple verticals. Either it's for new constructions, we can rough in just the box, so low-cost solution just to make your building EV ready. And then you can install the electronics, the monitoring devices later down the road, or just install the full kit in retrofits when there's an actual EV being like that is arriving within the building.
Oh, that's really cool. So I don't have an electrical engineer background or anything like that, just to be transparent. Alex does, but I don't. So I'm going to ask some of the more consumer side questions. But just out of curiosity, I know it's not like based on the conversation we had, like a connected device, but like, does it alert the driver like when things are starting to split, like when there's more load demand? Like, do they get like text alerts or anything like that, or is that kind of a future plan?
Good question. So as Nick mentioned, the device is non-connected, right?
Okay.
So we don't have a way to communicate with the driver. And we don't need to, because the driver will themselves have their app, and their car will tell them, oh, your car has stopped charging. And in 15 minutes, if you're using less energy, it will start again automatically. So what we found out over the years is that the drivers will adapt their energy consumption based on if we shut down the power a couple of times within a week. Then they'll say, okay, if I want to charge my car tonight, I might not use the dryer or cook, right?
They're more cognizant of that.
Yeah. And since we really focus on the dedicated charging, so it's one DCC, one user, they adapt their energy usage. So after a couple of weeks, typically what we see is that there's not that many power cut, because they will learn how to minimize the power cut.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. Have you seen any issues like integrating with chargers? Like if they're like it stops the session or like cuts power, does it fully cut power to the charger? Like when that switch happens, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So right now, all our units are fully cutting down the power. So it simulates a power outage. So
okay.
Power gets back, it's just restart or reinitialize. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So there's probably certain chargers, like network chargers, that like if they have a charge session going and they power cycle, because I know that if a charge point power cycles and it has a charge session going, it doesn't automatically restart.
Doesn't restart it.
If you need a RFID to start the session, then depending on the models.
Yeah,
Some of them you can override it.
Okay.
Some of them you can. But our market, you don't need a network charger.
No, you just have it done Clipper Creek, or in a lot of cases, I think there's like 1450s you could put at the end of it and just
Most
plug.
of them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was something that kind of I push this a lot. People really want to sell these chargers, these boxes on the walls, and we're an outlet company, which is like counterintuitive to the charging world. But the reason why is you look at what most people actually charge their EVs on, and they don't install $400 or $500 or $800 chargers unless they are commercial or absolutely have to or don't know any better. And they install like a 1450 outlet and call it a day. And so what's really cool about his product and something that is, you can have a dumb outlet, right, plugged into your mobile adapter in a parking spot. That outlet's, a good outlet's like $75.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If you actually do, that's a different discussion. I'm like not catching up. Like a good Norema 1450 is like $75.
Right.
That's so much cheaper than installing like a $400 Tesla wall connector or a charge point connector. And now you have this one-to-one where that person now has an experience or can charge where they might not have before. So it's an enabler. It's kind of cool.
I would add to that, we have the benefit of tapping the power on the individual meter suites, right? So we will benefit of residential rate and no demand response or peak demand subcharges. Mm-hmm. So the utility doesn't see it.
Yeah, it just looks like the user's cooking more.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's really cool.
That's so cool. So is this available in just Canada or is this in the US as well?
It's in both countries. So we're currently in 30 states in the US, available through our online platform. So yeah, we've been selling in the US for a little over 5 years, and everything is UL listed.
Are you in Ohio?
I don't know.
Why?
That's where
we're both in Ohio, so
Yep.
Got it.
down the Midwest.
I was about to say, if you hear any Midwestern accents, that's us.
Do you have like people that are out there just like waiting for the Cybertruck yet? Like, do you have people that ask you all the time, "When that thing coming? I want it. I want to take it out my farm down to the cornfields."
We're seeing a ton
of.
Well, we're seeing a lot of Rivians out here, like a ton
awesome.
of Rivians.
A lot.
Yeah. But yeah, no Cybertrucks at the moment. At least nobody's asked me if I have any answers on that.
Right.
I know Ohio has a lot of battery plants coming in the next few years.
A ton. Yeah, Ohio's been really good about being doing our best to be business friendly and like getting all the plants locally here, because we just got that Intel plant that's like, I don't know, 30 miles from my house it's going to go in. So it is that's a big one coming here soon.
That's the chip war stuff happening, and it's like coming to factories in the U.S. again.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know where Redwood Materials just announced they're putting a plant somewhere out there. I don't know if it's. I don't know. East Coast, yeah.
East Coast, yeah.
And I think that's a big deal that people kind of. The recycling of batteries will be interesting to our industry because it's something we hear a lot as people in the industry and EVs. People always ask me, "What about those batteries? They're terrible." And like. We can recycle most of them, so it's really cool to see that that's actually taking off and that factories are going to be built to recycle the batteries that come from, a slightly small aging fleet, but someday that fleet will be old.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
Just as supply lines are constrained
Yeah.
because we're in a big war.
Yeah.
It's killing off a lot of copper production.
Yeah.
Probably there's not a lot of copper in
Yeah,
batteries.
but there's lithium.
Lithium, cobalt, tons of nickel. So,
Yeah.
aluminum.
David, I was going to say, to circle back on Ohio, if you need anybody to test any products, I volunteer, and I'm sure Alex would too.
Yeah, definitely.
We both have older homes, so
Yeah.
We'll take you up on it.
yeah, definitely. We'll send you an email.
Okay.
No, that product sounds amazing, and I mean, just to give the ability to like allow owners to control their electricity in a way. Like, I think that's like the most fascinating part of like our industry is that we are starting to see more conversations about energy control. Like having people to be more energy independent in a way. They can control how their electricity is used versus with like gasoline, you don't really have a say of how that works. So that's really, really cool. I'm gonna have to dive more into this.
Right.
Yeah.
I do have a question. Like, how do you control the recycle? So you're saying like when you have to turn the power off, some chargers don't want to turn back on, but you can get others to go back on? Like, what
Yeah.
protocol are you using to do that?
It's internal in the chargers.
Okay.
So some chargers with NFC or RFID
Right.
will have a little dip switch that you can
Oh, okay.
turn up.
Yeah.
Cool.
And, yeah.
So you can either activate or deactivate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a dumb charger, so that could be a good way to test it.
Right. Clipper Creeks and like any of those like dumb chargers. And that's actually one of the beauties of his product, right? Like we have all these people talking about smart chargers and all this connectivity, including us. Like we're a culprit of this at Orange. And I'm happy to dive into the challenges there are with RF and signal and all these protocols to send data between smart chargers and smart charging systems and all these platforms.
Yeah.
But why I say it's really his approach comes from his background. He did an approach that is really simple, and we say it's dumb, and I think that's an unfair. It's just not. It doesn't have electronics in it that actually are often dumber than the simple solution.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right.
just doing it well, and it does it consistently. And I think that's often overlooked in like user behavior, like you mentioned.
Oh.
So like as an owner, the last thing I really want is try to figure out the algorithm that's controlling charging my car. But if it's really consistent, it behaves a certain way every time, I adapt to it, and I can, and it's, I think, a lost cause a little bit in the world we live in right now, where everything's like, let's put AI in a learning user. And it's like, we are the AI. We know how to adapt to things.
Yeah.
Let us adapt to a simpler solution. And so that's a beautiful thing. I do know, and I don't know how much you want to talk about it, so you can shut me down if you don't want to talk about it, but you are working on
Snap you on
connectivity in some of the products he's working on. And so that's an area that's like really interesting to the world right now in general. Is we have a lot of, I know you guys are probably seeing it, but I'm hearing it all the time, is like these big public charging companies are having a ton of issue with uptime and connectivity. And I like one of the best ones is like if you don't own a Tesla, a common screen you get to see at a DC fast charging is currently not connected. Like,
I mean, those EA chargers are bricking cars.
I know they're bricking cars. So like software is a really hard thing in an industry that's traditionally been, wire and switches, right?
Yep.
And so having his knowledge of wires and switches is actually really valuable. And then coming from my background, we come from a completely different world. I'm all about IoT, connectivity, circuits, like how do you connect your car and get all the data from it? Like how do I get the camera data off a car to the cloud and then analyze it? Like that's a totally different world. And so there's good conversations to have because it helps me as an engineer and a CEO of a company trying to build these products learn, and I think vice versa for him too.
Absolutely.
And so when we collaborate and we talk to each other, we learn how we can build a better platform. And so one of the things I've seen is like we're building our own charging communication platform in Orange, and we're calling it OrangeNet. I don't know if that's ever been released, so I got to be careful.
Oh.
It's on our website.
It's on our website.
you heard it here first.
Joe's
Living
like-
Electric. It's an exclusive.
All right. So we've kind of coined it OrangeNet, which is like in a sense a competitor to an OCPP provider. And so when we're talking with customers, we get asked a lot, like, "Are you OCP compatible?" I'm like, "Well, does OCPP work in your 3-story underground parking garage?" No, we're not OCPP compatible. So like that's like a hurdle we've had to come across in multifamily, where like a lot of public charging has been in the open and open lots, and some of it's installed in parking garages, and it usually doesn't work. I have tons of experiences as an EV driver, I assume you do too, of showing up to a charger in a parking garage and you can't get it to connect or work. From like, airports in Denver, trying to get it there and trying to drop off my Tesla rental and I can't get ChargePoint to start a session. I'm like, I don't know what. My mom was doing this, she would have broken something by now. It's not a good user experience. And so this is, and I think MKHB just made a video that went viral. I got sent from tons of people, like, check it out, like charging, and like, I think it's something that's going to become front and center as they become mainstream, is how do we solve this user experience,
The
uptime and the user experience. And
Right.
so that's something that's big for us as a company right now, is like really nailing that platform for us. So I can talk a little bit if you're interested in how we do that. I don't want to get too nerdy and too technical, but basically we've had to develop our own hardware stack and software stack that has multiple redundancies and how data gets back to the cloud, so that even if it's completely offline, we have a way to get data for payments, because that's really what the value of OrangeNet is
Right.
when you don't have the ability with a DCC to split off of an individual house unit panels, you're pulling from a single meter or like its own new meter for charging in a lot of cases. And in that case, you need to be able to individually monitor and have smart charging. And so that's our solution, in a sense, summed up, is we have a payment platform that has access control. And to do that, we need some level of data back to the cloud to figure out what we charge each month for the payment platform. And so that data pipeline's broken and we don't get the data, we're not accurately charging people. Or they're having a bad user experience because they're not able to charge because they can't unlock one of our outlets.
Or we can't submit for carbon credits.
Or we can't submit for carbon credits. Like, all these things that we need data for more and more with the way the industry is kind of structuring itself. And there's like the policy people who have all these high in the sky ideas, and then they're kind of implementing these like open source standards that were never designed for these high in the pie ideas, like high in the sky ideas. And therefore, there's going to be, I think, a really interesting shuffling here in the next 5 years of what ends up winning and losing. And we chatted about this before, but you guys both kind of work in the charging world on both the network side and the connectivity side of it. So I think if we want, we can dive into this a little bit more and talk about like what, as an industry, a lot of people here are interested in space and work in this space. And maybe your listeners will find this interesting, but there's a lot going on here that's nuanced beyond it doesn't work. It's like, why doesn't it work? And like, what was the intended purpose of the solution that's being implemented in the wrong spot? And so I'm happy to answer questions there or dive in, but I would like to kind of give you guys an opportunity to talk about your experience as EV drivers and working in the industry about this whole connectivity issue.
Yeah. So Alex, I'm going to let you start first, Alex, but Nicholas, I actually have a question for you regarding, getting data if there's no internet connection or any type of connection at all. And correct me if this is confidential, but I was just curious. So, like, if it's like, say, for example, like on the 4th floor, underground parking garage, there's no internet connection, but you guys need to get some type of data from, like an Orange charger. How does that work? Like, how do you get that data from that?
So the way we currently do it is we have mesh networks between our outlets. And then one of them will end up being a gateway. So every outlet that we sell can be a gateway. And then we built an algorithm, pretty simple algorithm, which is figure out which outlet has the best signal to cell strength or has a Wi-Fi connected to Wi-Fi. Then the rest of the outlets will connect to a local Wi-Fi network we built that allows them to communicate on a mesh between themselves. This has got 2 benefits. I'm going to do a little plug here, but the reason we did this is, one, we've dealt with enough IT guys to know that when you're selling to corporate and you have to get into their IT at a large complex, the IT is actually really hard to get around. Like they are their own wall, and a lot of these big, multifamily developers, they don't want smart devices because they're scared of security risk into their system and leak data, and they have a lot of data on their tenants. So they're very adamant, like, we don't really want you to connect to our Wi-Fi. So we build our own network to do this, and then they mesh to like that 4th floor. Now let's say there's an outlet that's just way too far away. We then have a secondary data path where we bring data into our mobile app, and that then later comes to the cloud. And we do a redundancy, so we actually try to get data from multiple sources, and then we reconcile on the back end with tokens. And that's just a standard protocol for like any cryptography. So you never get charged twice.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, it sounds like you guys have everything covered. That's why I love talking with you guys.
Literally 2 years of my life have gone into like watching my first version kind of work, and now we're on our like version 2.
Yeah.
And like, it's a little better, and there's still times where it doesn't work perfectly, right? Like there is a black magic to RF that I think we're so comfortable with Wi-Fi working, but I think we've all had the times where we've gone into a weird corner of our house and like our phone doesn't connect, like it's too slow. Like wireless signals are such a black magic, to be really honest, and like I have some really good friends that are just RF engineers. They're your stereotypical like nerdiest people you've ever met, because the math is so hard that it takes a special person to be interested in that subset of engineering. Because there's electrical engineering, which is like electrons, flow, circuits, but then there's RF electrical engineering, which is even more nuanced, and the math for it is even more difficult. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really fortunate working here in the Bay Area to have access to some of the, like, I literally will call them the brightest minds on RF, because they've been here doing RF for Apple, for smart meters, for like some of the biggest hardware companies, to build all of our products that we're kind of comfortable with, from like Cisco routers to the smart meters for PG&E. And so when I have a problem, I actually am really fortunate to be able to like knock on their door and be like, "Hey, I'm stuck. Help me."
Right.
That's awesome. They're nice enough and cool enough. They're like, "Yeah, we'll help you."
Yeah. No, that's really cool. Great. I mean, it takes a team. That's it. Like this whole industry.
To solve some of these problems, literally.
Yeah, it's all about collaboration. Like I think that's one of the biggest hurdles that like I'm starting to notice as I dive more into like network data and stuff like that. So many companies are trying to do their own thing, And like, I get it, it's their business, they're trying to make money, totally understand that. But at the end of the day, like, there needs to be some type of collaboration to make this better for the driver and for that end solution. Because if you're just going to continue doing it your own way, it's just going to get worse. And that's why I respect everything that you guys are doing and like the people you guys work with, because you're making it better for people. So. Right. But on that note, I'll actually hand it to Alex, because I feel like you might have better insight with working with a charging provider.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear the kind of the ChargeNet background, because I come from the OCPP world, as you mentioned. It's like every charger, basically everyone you can think of, runs on OCPP, which is essentially a communication protocol to get data between the charger and whatever dashboard somebody's using to manage it. So it's interesting to hear that you guys, like, you looked at that and you're like, this is not going to get the job done for us, and here's what needs to be fixed with it. So
when I started in 2019 looking at starting this company, before I had started, I did a lot of research. And one of the things I did was I pulled down an OCPP from their open source library, being an engineer at GitHub, and just pulled it down and started playing with it. And there was many issues I found immediately in it that were just like glaringly, like, you could tell this wasn't really... It was an open source project that was, being built kind of half-heartedly at the time. Like, it's definitely grown a lot more since then. You have now entire OCPP companies like Switch and AmpUp, and like now there's entire software platforms like ChargeLab in Canada.
Contributing to
and they're contributing to it. But the problem again comes to this like issue of it never was designed to solve the problem that we're talking about, which is like no connectivity networks. They're really based around Wi-Fi devices that have strong Wi-Fi signal, that are in good signal environments. And then the last part is the protocol is really what you said about getting data to a dashboard in real time, which is, in our opinion, not necessary, because we're not charging you in real time, we're charging you monthly. So there's this disconnect. So real time isn't that important, actually. And what I laugh is, like, most people we do customer surveys with aren't sitting there looking at a dashboard. They don't care if it's that day's data or like that minute's data. They just want to have a rough idea of what's going on. Like, a monthly snapshot, they're happy. So that's I think the disconnect is it was designed around a real-time reporting, which isn't needed in my opinion, and then people might argue with me on that. And then the last part is the need to go to the cloud. So if you do have a charger that has Wi-Fi connectivity, but your cell phone doesn't, now you're pinging this charger to start a charge session, but your phone can't ping the cloud to tell the charger that might actually still be connected to a Wi-Fi network in the property, and you can't do anything with it. So my favorite example of this is PowerFlex in Palo Alto. They replaced all the ChargePoint chargers in downtown Palo Alto, where I go all the time for lunch, and I'll sometimes try to charge there. I've hacked it so I can, because I take a picture of the QR code on someone else's phone, so that when I leave the underground parking garage, I can scan the QR code when I have cell signal to start a charge session. And that, because I don't have cell signal here, right? Like, no, that's me being clever. I guarantee you most people just give up. They're like, I don't know how to start.
Yeah.
Because unless you're a city employee who's got Wi-Fi for this city hall, you can't start a charge session on these chargers that are installed, because they need to ping over an OCPP
It's like
community.
2 layers of access control.
Yeah, it's like 2 layers of access control. So like, it's kind of counterintuitive, and the amount of chargers that have this problem as an EV driver that I've experienced is just mind-boggling to me. And I'm assuming you've had similar experiences where you've gone to a charger and your cell phone can't connect and send that ping to the cloud to tell the charger to turn on. So the other thing we did to solve this is we do device-to-device communication. So we use local communication from the phone to our outlets. So you could have no cell signal, but as long as you've had the Down app downloaded at one point in the last week, you'll be able to start a charge session.
Wow.
And so that right there solves that problem. But it took us a long time to really think about how we're going to do that in our access control platform, because we want to do we have customers that want to do complex access control. And so we need that connectivity beyond completely being offline. That's where the mesh network's helpful for us.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So what's the communication between the phone and the charger then, if you don't have, cellular or Wi-Fi or whatever?
So the current solution is Bluetooth, and then in our version 2 of our outlets, we're moving towards an NFC solution.
Wow. Okay. So that would then, transfer the data from I'm assuming the outlet is still tracking the power usage and stuff, right? So that would then send to the phone, which can then connect back to the network if necessary.
Yeah. Something else.
Is that right?
Here? Exactly.
Okay.
In most of these protocols, these network protocols, and I'm giving away a lot, so
Yeah.
Hopefully none of our competitors listen. They think about charging from a perspective of the cloud controlling the chargers, and we think about it the other way around. Our chargers are always the ground truth. They just are giving data to the cloud, and so there's never like, we're not expecting the cloud to control the chargers. We're expecting you locally to control the chargers, and the chargers are just relaying info to dashboards. And so that paradigm change in our network has allowed us to build a more resilient network in these network-constrained environments.
That's a great principle.
Yeah, it's I think, and that's why I don't like OCPP, is because it's built around the other idea. It's like the cloud is controlling the charger, and I get why that's the way it is. It's totally like what I would have done 7 years ago with a Wi-Fi charger at my house, not about all these problems now after trying to install chargers in multifamily. Mm-hmm. But now, 3 years later, I'm like, I'm now really like set that this is the wrong approach for networking. And I think we're going to see that as more and more public chargers come online. So like one of my favorite examples is you guys have, if you ever want to interview her, I'll happily give you, Kitty Adams runs a nonprofit called Adopt a Charger.
Yeah.
And she's awesome, and she's a friend of one of our investors, and she does all this work to get chargers installed at national parks. And national parks often have no cell signal.
Right.
It's middle of nowhere. So like we've talked a lot about like what it would take to get those to be networkable in any way. So mostly what she installs is dumb chargers. She's just like, the national park just needs cost. And like it's an amenity, and it makes people happy, and it's paid for through her nonprofit. Which is cool. But like that's a huge issue for her, is like, how do I even, if I ever wanted to make these, hey, there's no viable commercially for like scaling beyond just like the kindness of her heart and environmentalism. It's fell. Like there's no real way to do that yet. And there are companies that say they have ways to do it. And I think I'll just say who it is. It's Zeal. That's like their biggest pitch, right? They're like saying we can work completely offline. And there's pros and cons. So like for our customers, that doesn't always work because you remove the ability to do real-time like notifications to a driver without a mesh network. You lose the ability to do firmware updates from the cloud. So there's certain things you lose in that amenity. And so I think what we've done is a nice balancing act of this.
Well, it's also crazy expensive.
Well, that's a different issue. We're just talking network protocols.
Right. I was going to say, I'm curious to get your perspective too, because the reason I think a lot of people think of like the cloud controls the charger is real-time payments and like authenticating payment methods, especially for a public charger when you've got to verify a credit card as a real credit card at the time you're starting the charge, right? So I'm curious your perspective on that too.
So we don't do any real-time payments. That's the biggest difference. And we can get away with that because I actually don't believe in public charging in most cases in the way it's being. I'm hoping that as public chargers get more sophisticated, they copy Tesla and learn to do plug-to-charge, because that's the proper way to do it. And you can put tokens within the automotive industry. The problem is collaboration here has been a hurdle. Getting Volvo, Volkswagen, Ford, and GM to play nice together has been a nightmare. But hopefully someday they come together and realize that if they're going to be as good as experience as Tesla for public charging, they need to figure this out. And there are standards that are being built right now. The ISO 15118 standard has the charge in there, and I'm really a big proponent of that standard for public charging.
Right.
And that's the right solution, not this OCPP thing. The car should be the final truth of everything, and it should be relied on a smartphone like I'm doing, but only for the car. And for where we're installing, we're doing multifamily, so we're private, so we don't need to charge per transaction. We only charge once. So we tally how much energy you used on our network, and we charge you once a month, and we reimburse once a month to the properties. And so you could jump around properties. Well, no. We look at what outlets and what chargers you used, and we go, okay, we owe property X this much, property Y this much. We charge these drivers this much, and it tallies out. So like that's all done in our backend, but we only need to do that once a month. And we make sure you have a card on file. That's about it to give you a token.
Right.
So as long as we know you have a valid card, we're like, okay, we're good.
Yeah, exactly. It's so interesting because we're in such like a transitionary period, I feel like, just in the whole EV charging landscape. You mentioned the plug and charge. I feel like we've been talking about that the past 5 years, is like, oh yeah, that'll eventually like be the thing, and we're still, like you said, we're not there yet and still trying to build it. So that's very interesting.
I've signed a lot of NDAs with OEMs, so I got to be really careful.
Right, yeah.
But what I will say is they're struggling. Because like this is a whole new world for a lot of them, and some of them have ignored EVs for way too long. But what's even worse is they've ignored charging because they haven't even thought of charging. comes back to management being disconnected from our industry. So if you're an executive at a Ford and you're setting up an EV charging program, you're thinking about the car. And you've always been able to offsource the fueling of the car to gas stations. You've never thought about having to fuel that freaking car.
That's your problem.
And now it's on you, but it's been missed by so much of management because they've never, like in their careers, this is so new. And it's like, okay, it's a fault. They're starting to figure it out, but that's how I described the conversations I had 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago with most of these OEMs and a lot of these directors at, all of these OEMs. They really hadn't grasped that yet. Like I got asked a question once from someone, and I won't say who, what company, but I literally was like, no, that's the wrong way to do it. I'm not doing that. And he's like, what? I was like, no, this is how you should do it. Just literally do it this way. He goes, I never thought of that. I was like, you own the car. Why are you asking me to take all this stuff you can do on the car better than I can do over here and do it over here? Just do it on the car. You don't need me. And he goes, oh. I was like, it's kind of like this disconnect of the industry. And they'll be interested to see how it shakes out. And that's going to be hard for a lot of the traditional OEMs to adopt.
Yeah. We talk about it all the time with ChargeWay because, we work with utilities and dealership partners all across the country. And the thing that I really think a lot of OEMs missed is the fueling experience, like what you just mentioned. But a lot of the times when they sell like a gasoline powered vehicle, the majority of drivers know how to fuel their vehicle. So I think a lot of manufacturers just assume that this is how they're going to live. And it's a totally different fueling experience. And that's really where we try to step in with like ChargeWay and, help them see that it needs to be simplified and it needs to be described because there's a lot of education that's missed. And I hear it all the time from people buying EVs at dealerships. They just don't know. They don't get taught that. So
and I think like speaking of education, that's like one of the big things that you work on with Merbly.
Yeah, absolutely. So a side hustle we have at RVE is Merbly.com, which is an educative platform for multi-unit charging. And basically we try to emphasis on what's the actual needs of the driver. You need a fully charged battery in the morning, and they need transparency and equity in terms of who's paying the electricity. And if a company can figure that out, and I think you're really on the right path there, then
thank you.
That's it. They don't need more.
They don't need a lot of bells and whistles.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to give a jab at Tesla here because this has been pissing me off for like a few weeks now.
I'm a little bitter with them too, so.
Yeah, make sure you tweet at Elon.
At Elon. At whatever director is running charging right now. The education from Tesla, which is the company that's leading this, is still really bad on charging. They excel chargers, but I have had so many people. So the mobile adapter that ships with the car. It has adapters you can buy. Yeah. It's not really clear you can pull them out.
Yeah.
Right? Something we have to educate on, and it blows my mind how many people don't know they can pull out and swap that thing. There's no documentation. There's nothing in the manual that's clear. It's like not user intuitive, and I'm blown away by how many people don't know they can swap the adapters out from the 120 to the 240 that ships with the thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so these people are like literally. We were in a parking lot with one of our COO recently, and there was like a nail salon, and all these women in the nail salon had bought Model 3s. I don't know why. They all had like all same cars, like they went in on a group deal. I'm guessing something, but they were hilarious. And we asked them like how they charged the car, and they were like showing us. They had no idea that they could swap that level 1 outlet on their mobile adapter, and they'd only owned the car for like 2 weeks, so fair enough. But like that, I think, is a huge missed opportunity that still is so difficult in this industry, and it's really great what he's doing with education because that I think is something that you guys are doing too. Is this industry is so new. The average person who's not tuned in or hasn't spent 7 or 3 or 10 years of their career in this space, and there's more and more of us.
Yeah.
But I think we need to figure out how to reach the people who are outside of that little bubble that we think is our lives. But those people have no idea how this industry works, and it's kind of coming back to the way somebody described it to me. It's like there was a time where gas stations didn't exist, right?
Yeah.
We're kind of in that world. We're reinventing the gas station, and it's totally different paradigm. And the problem that we have that they didn't have is cars didn't exist either before. So they got to invent the gas station and the car together, so we both new experiences. Right. And now we've got 100 years of people teaching their kids how to fill up at the gas station, rite of passage, right? And that rite of passage is changing from putting a nozzle on the side of the car into plugging in somewhere. So
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's something that works really well is sharing success stories. Case studies work a long way because there are good stories in multi-unit buildings, right? It's just not widely available out there. And the traditional OEMs, they don't think about charging, to your point. They won't even talk about it. They're just trying to sign a contract for the cars and then figure out yourself. So getting success story out there in the news is really key.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Because I
You've been doing that for a long time.
That's your life, man.
You know, it's, anytime I'm on Twitter, like I'll go and I'll look through like EVs and apartments, and I'll search through it, and it's constant where it's somebody just saying like it's impossible to own an EV while living in an apartment. I'm like, that's not necessarily true. Yeah, there's plenty of examples of where this has worked and how you can do it, and now it's even getting cheaper and cheaper. So I think we're at like a new point in time where people are going to see more and more of these success stories come out. I think the thing that when we first met, was like it was just still too expensive for most people to go out and afford to pay whatever ever charges $5,000 a station. That's too much. Most people aren't going to pay that. So now that we're like what Orange does, it's a $400 station. Like it's a big difference.
Oh yeah.
We see like the upsell in terms of real estate value speaks a lot.
Yeah.
That's a way to convince most people don't want EVs tomorrow, but they might want to sell their condos in a year or two, and having the possibility to charge is an upsell value.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
The other thing we're kind of riding a wave on is policy. So we see a lot of people fighting for like equitable access to energy has become a huge part of the conversation in California. Building codes are now requiring EV charging for new constructions on multifamily. And this is adding kind of fuel to our business, but it also adds a lot of convoluted answers, basically. Like there isn't a clear path forward. It's so new. There's a lot of people bickering about what's the right way to do it, what's the not right way to do it. So what he's saying is super important. If we can keep producing case studies that show what works and what doesn't work. And we were just chatting earlier, so we've been selling to customers who might have bought a previous competitor or a solution that's older, and they've had problems with it. And they're like, now we're not selling a new charging. They're not new to charging. They've had a charging platform. It's a very different conversation than the first buyer of a charger who's never owned charging before on their property. Right. And they're way more apprehensive because the solutions they have been sold previously and spent money on are failing them. Whether it's like they're breaking down maintenance-wise or the connectivity's terrible. Like there's all these things that aren't working well. And I feel like that's where like half the EV charging industry is. Like Tesla's victory right now, and where their moat is their charging network, right? And when you go look at an EV, as much as I'd want to own a Rivian or another EV, I don't want to deal with, Electrify America, just to be flat out. I don't want to have to drive and come to a blue screen of death going, I can't charge tonight.
I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about plugging my car in and then it bricks my car.
Oh, yeah. But these problems are really bad user experiences, and it comes to a point, like, we're really fresh in this industry. Like, we've been in it for so long that you think it's solved. And coming from Tesla, I'm like, why is this not solved? We solved this. I've been in meetings. We solved this. Why is it this guy is doing it so terribly? Like, what's happening? And it comes to incentives. Like, I have a rule of thumb in life. It's like people aren't bad. They just fail to the system that they're operating in, right? And so if the system's poorly incentivized, they're going to meet those incentives poorly. And so what was nice about working at Tesla, and I know one of you was a Tesla employee for a while too, is there was a company culture of like excellence and from the top, and there was a company culture of fundamental thought, which was like the best idea wins. No politics, no title, just the best idea wins, and we will argue it out. I remember interviewing there, and the director of my team on my interview literally made me feel really, really dumb. And I watched him later do that to other interviewees, and I asked him, why do you do that? It's so demoralizing. Like, I want to see as an engineer how you handle being told you're wrong, because you're going to be told you're wrong a lot at this company, and you're going to have to defend yourself. And some engineers take it, or some people take it personally, and they go home and cry and go, I'm a terrible person. Others go, okay, I lost this one. He was right. I learned something. And you want to find more of the people that go, I was wrong. He was right. I'm not personally offended. I'm stoked. I learned something.
I learned something.
And then that's how the companies succeed with a lot of the charging incentives. I'm going to shut up here in a second, but yeah, with a lot of charging incentives, the system's flawed. So the incentives are to install hardware, not to operate the network. They're not to have a charging experience for the car owners because the car charging companies don't care about your user experience with the cars because they're not selling the cars. And they don't really care about the recurring fees because they know they're never going to make their money back on a $125,000 charging station off 10 cents a kilowatt hour. So this whole system's kind of broken from the day one on how it was incentivized. And I got a little bit in trouble for calling BMW out on a call for this, but they did a really expensive ad in the Super Bowl last year. Let's see if they do it this year, this Sunday, right? But they had this ad that was like, ask them how much they spent. They're like, it was like a few, millions of dollars, like, half, maybe like, I think it was like 48 to 50 million on these ads with Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? I was like, you know how much DC fast charging you could have installed? And the beauty by marketing is like you can write off DC fast charging on your books. So the business model changes. So what Tesla goes, every Tesla charger we install is marketing for us. We get to write that off on our taxes. It's an asset. And so they go, yay, instead of spending money on ads. And that's the other thing we see in the automotive industry. They're so used to spending money on ads. They're not thinking about charging as an ad channel for them. And ironically, the most successful and profitable, I don't know what successful, but profitable charging company was Volta. So if you look at like all the profit that companies made, they weren't a charging company. They were a billboard company with a charger. Right? Like they were an ad company. Putting chargers, they were making more money than charge point per charger because ad revenue generated more revenue than kilowatt hours. And so that is the system is just not really well thought out yet, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. We
100%.
Alex and I always joke. One of our listeners actually mentioned we were talking about NEVI funding and how like back in like 2015, 2016 when I worked at Tesla, I was like, yay, everything is amazing. And now that like I'm actually in the industry and I have my rose-colored lens or glasses off, I'm like that Ben Affleck meme where I'm just like, just make it work. One of our listeners said that. I'm like, that's so relatable because it's true. It's just please make it work.
Right. Right.
So we joke that I'm Ben Affleck now.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point about the marketing because I'm sure on Sunday we're going to see a ton of EV ads, like an absurd amount, like more than it continues to increase every year. But it's like
the Hummer ad last year was my favorite.
The which one?
The Hummer ad was my favorite.
Oh yeah,
was that the Norway one? Like with Will
no,
Ferrell?
was that GM that did the Norway?
I don't know.
Who did that? Was with Will Ferrell, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because he's in this year's.
The next day of him sitting in traffic in his Model S.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
I mean, it's good. It's good overall for like awareness.
This comes back to our bubble, right? Like, it's
right.
So it's good for everyone. Like, I'm not upset. I just wish they were thinking about how they could make the user experience better, because that's going to scare people when they see stories from like MKHB about charging. When they have their friends who have like, oh, I tried to charge my Rivian and it bricked my car. That's going to scare them to buy an EV, and it's going to slow down the progress that like Tesla's done a really good job at building, because they have solved that already, right? They've made this charging seamless experience for people. The rest of the automotive industry honestly should just copy it. Like, I don't really
6 years ago.
I know.
You're so right. You're so right though, because there's so many things we have to like worry about in the EV industry, like the oil lobby, like making EVs sound bad, like all the just the naysayers in general. Like we as an industry definitely have to come together a lot more and like work towards unified solutions more than infighting and saying, oh no, we're doing it this way.
What I can happily say is we're past the point of no return. There was like 2014, 2015 that it was really questionable if EVs were going to become mainstream.
That's fair.
And like I remember going to take the job, my first job out of college at Tesla, and friends going, "You're an idiot. You're going to have a job." I was like, "Well, whatever." Now look at me. I'm always out of a job. I'm a founder. No one employs me but myself. Like, the reality being, like, there was so much naysay right back then. I just remember 2013 when Elon got on stage for the battery swap, the event that never ever happened. It was just like a complete like Harris Ranch event. Let's battery swap Teslas, and it was like that whole event to me was just me feeling like he was yelling at the world, going like, "We solved all the problems you guys talk about. Please just listen to us. We solved them." And they're like, "No, you still." And like, and here we are, we're 10 years later, going like, we're still not totally solved outside of Tesla.
Right.
The automotive industry is now committing fully to BEV. They're having all those growing pains that, we in the industry working with like early Teslas, early, EVs saw 10 years ago.
I mean, I will say they didn't solve one thing, and it's the thing that we all do, which is multifamily.
Well,
that's a topic we discussed earlier. That how many businesses I've tried and I've run away or leave the multi-unit.
Yeah, we were joking. We like the punishment of this industry. So we were.
I can relate.
Tried to do multifamily charging and then just bailed. And what's ironic is it's a huge market. There's no concept that this market's going to be has to be solved for just to cross the chasm in EVs.
But the business model definitely a challenge.
The business model is a challenge
in the short term.
And that's I think where people like we're going to have to create really clever business models, not so much technology, to make this industry succeed for multifamily. And that's where I think we really talk a lot about is like how are we going to keep growing here and like succeeding with the customers we have and
the customer journey.
And the customer journey
cycle is the hardest part, not the technological stuff.
No, technology is easy here. As much as I love tech, the actual hard part sales.
And expectations.
Expectations are very low.
I want a full battery and equity.
And I have complete transparency in what I'm paying for energy. That's it.
Stop.
And that's so hard to solve from the politics internally. So we're seeing that in a lot of the way we build our company. Although I will say this is way easier than selling to government sales. So from my last, I feel like this is a walk in the park for punishment. And that's really consumer facing. I'm going to sell some supplements online or something.
Right.
You're gonna hate that.
Just all those. What is it? Paid per click ads. Like it's a different world. But like. Our B2B sales cycle in multifamily and meeting, customer needs because it's a B2B to C is a challenge.
I feel like from a founder perspective, what is nice is that we're solving an actual problem. Mm-hmm. Like people suffer from this and we can really help them. And
you guys are facing these problems not that long ago, right? Like I remember you all met. You were both in apartments with Teslas.
I was. Yeah. I was in an apartment. Yeah, I was going to ask too. Have you seen it get better since the last time we chatted? Because I have gone from an apartment where I was charging on I did end up getting a garage, I think, after we talked, and charged on a level 1 outlet for the longest time and did 95% plus of what I needed. So I was actually inspired by you guys to give that a shot and impressed at how well it worked. So have you seen that get a lot better, like in the past year or so?
I mean, I think so. I think I've seen it like slowly start to change. Like the more the meetings that we're in with some of like the larger like real estate investors, they are slowly understanding more of like we don't need to install a $10,000 charge point station. We can actually go this route and satisfy the needs of the community. And oh, by the way, we'll probably make some money on that as well. Yeah, because I think the very first thing I talked about with you guys was like the balancing act that happens in these like apartment communities where it's like the EV driver wants access to power and that's kind of it. The community wants to make sure that access is equal for everybody. And then the building owner wants to make sure that when they put in this, it's like not going to break the bank. And if they did have to spend some money on it, they want a way to get that money back. And like we were just talking about like how that seems so simple, but yet becomes like so overly complicated very, very quickly. And I think over the last year, I've seen it change. It's not a lot. It's only been a year, but it's like it's been marginal enough to make me feel like the industry is going in the correct direction.
Right. I've seen the exact same thing on our calls.
We're fortunate to be heavy. So one thing I was saying, in San Mateo County, where we started the company, there's like a 23% of cars on the road are EVs, which is like I think the second highest in the country.
That's wild. Yeah.
And so like I literally will wake up in the morning and go drive to meet someone, and I'll like turn the corner. It'll be like 7 Teslas, a Rivian, a freaking like Bolt, and there's no other car on the road. It's like, okay, we're all EV today, and it's great. I'm smiling inside. But that's like very much not the reality for most of the world still. Like that's just kind of, to be frank, most of these companies have offices here, so you've got hundreds of Tesla engineers. You have thousands of people that work in the industry here. So they're going to be more likely to buy an EV if they've worked at Ford's R&D department on the EV, if they worked at Tesla, if they work at Rivian, if they work at any of the self-driving car companies. They're going to be more likely to buy here because they're honestly, that's just how the valley's been for most of its history.
Right.
And so we get to see kind of what I call like a future preview of the rest of the world. We get to see like what is actually there's this many EVs on the road. What does it look like in a multifamily when 30% of the people in the property own an EV? And so because of that data, we're able to kind of talk to the rest of the world with more concrete evidence, which is, I think, to Jason's point, it's no longer I believe based off my model, this is what it's going to be. It's like, here's what's happening. Here's what we're doing to meet that demand. You're going to have this demand at some point in the future. Mm-hmm. How do you want to solve it? Do you want to do what these guys are doing? Do what these guys are doing. And I think that like is creating a concrete like evidence that these type of customers, especially B2B sales, need to feel comfortable making that decision. They don't make decisions quickly because they don't want to screw up, because they're long-term investments. And so if somebody's doing it, like he was saying, case studies are super valuable because it creates confidence in the solution, it creates confidence in the opportunity, and it gets backed by hard data that's happening, not just, what we call like Excel sheet math, right?
Right.
And so like going from Excel sheet math to real data from actual property is a huge jump. I think that's where the rhetoric's been really changing for us as a company. As we've started to expand, we have more and more real data to show, and that makes the conversations a lot easier.
Definitely.
That's awesome.
I love the fact that you charged on level 1 for a while at your apartment complex.
Yeah. I'll have to send you the video because I had a single outlet in my in my garage, and that outlet was for the garage door opener. So I had to run like an extension cord splitter from my ceiling like down to where I could plug in my car just to get it to work. So
I've seen a lot of that, especially in one apartment complexes, and the owners hate it. So like when I was talking to a company in Southern California that owns a ton of property, we went to a property and we were walking around and we saw a few people drive up in their Teslas and go in their garage, and we went to go, I chased one or two down. I was like, so how do you charge? And they're like, oh, no, don't show. Like,
shut the door.
They're like, no, I'm like breaking rules. Like they're like, I'm literally pulling from the garage like you did to get it to their car. And the property owner's like, oh, that's not what I want to happen. And I'm paying for their electricity because we pay for it.
Exactly.
And so they're like, they don't love it. So that's where I think this is a really weird market, because there's also these like lack of transparency between the tenant and the owner.
But again, these people, they bought the car, came home, and then, I need to charge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a weird world. I used to you do deliveries because you were in sales at Tesla, but when I did some of the deliveries for like the end of quarter where they get all the engineers to go like push cars, I was always asked, like we always were told to ask, how are you going to charge your car? Like that was the question in like the playbook, right? Yeah. And it was like the amount of people like, I'm just going to DC fast charge it. I live across from a DC fast charger. I was like, oh, good luck with that. Like, deep down, I'm like, I really like, no, that's not a good idea, but okay. And that was
gouged on prices.
Well, that was when all was free charging. So I was like, you know what, call it. But now that's going away, and the prices of charging have gone up 50% from where they were.
Triple the cost of like what normal electricity is.
It varies. It's not triple. It's triple at some of the EA and stuff, but for Tesla, it's actually pretty competitive. Because Tesla's doing tiered pricing at their superchargers. Right. So if you charge off peak hours, it's pretty much the rate you would pay. Okay. But during peak hours, they gouge because they want to. The problem with DC fast charging, I don't know if you guys have seen this, the logic here is so flawed. If people are like, we're going to install DC fast chargers. People are going to get off work during peak hours, and they're going to go race their DC fast charger. They're going to plug in, pull tons of power for 25 to 30 minutes. They're going to be backed up lines, and we're doing exactly what we don't want to do to the grid. What we talk all about is like, we don't want the energy at the peak to be pulled for charging. We want to take off peak hours. And we won't want to make it an inconvenience chore. We want it to be an effortless thing that just disappears in your life. I think we all love EVs because we wake up with a full battery and we don't think about it. But we figured the game out.
10 seconds every day.
10 seconds every day, yeah. And so that is a reality for still a lot of people. Like I talked to a lot of Uber drivers in the Bay who don't have charging, who rely mostly on DC fast charging.
Yeah.
And that blows my mind. Like I literally was in an Uber the other day and I was like, how do you charge? Like, I DC fast charge.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm like, oh. And there's a whole other world to that I learned about that makes me sad inside, because they're renting the car from like Hertz or something. But like, but like, that one's nuts. But we'll see how it plays out, right? Like that's where we're.
Right. That's why we're all here.
We're in the first wave to see how this is going to play out in California.
Yeah. Just to circle back on what David said with like the case studies and awareness, like that's exactly why Alex and I started this podcast, is that, not just from like our perspective to provide that to our listeners, but to also provide companies like yours as a platform, so you can bring up your solutions and talk about this, because it's needed. There's such a lack of transparency within this industry that's actually, it's sad. Like, just to be blunt. So it's good to have these conversations.
That's a little bit why. There's a lot of big investments, right? And so people are really scared. And like that, actually, I don't know. There's a lot of good books on open source software. And so like Google and a lot of companies have done a lot of amazing things to prove that being transparent actually is more valuable than trying to be secretive. And so I actually kind of go for, there's trade-offs. So we're definitely secretive on some of the stuff we do, IP, and like we have to be, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's other things that I think there's no value in holding close to our chests and not helping the industry grow. Because like the quote that I really follow and we agree with is rising tides raise all ships. Like we're in an industry where we're in this industry, at least I am, and I know David for sure, and everybody sitting here, is because we want to see action in two things. One, air quality, noise pollution. Those are the local things I care about with EVs that they solve. And then there's the broader climate impact that we as a society have to address to some level. And that's an argument that I don't try to go down, so we'll just stay off of it. But in terms of me, I personally love the idea that gas cars are going to go away, and the local air quality when I ride my bike or go for a run is going to improve. And we saw it over COVID, which is like,
my gosh,
theoretical to
there's
real
your case study.
What it looks like when you remove millions of gas cars in LA, right? Smog gone, air quality improved, and this stuff that's in air quality is so bad. So that's why I'm really passionate about this industry. Is we have an opportunity to undo a lot of the health impacts to our society just locally from EVs.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So,
and help people.
Rising tide.
Yeah, that's one of the exact reasons why I love being part of this industry too, and I have to remind myself when I get stressed out and distracted by all the noise, is that we're in this to help people. Like, I think so many companies like lose their way when they really focus on the money versus what really matters. So, yeah,
I mean, there's definitely going to be money to be made here, right? Like, let's be real. We're all But the money that's going to be made here is going to come out in the wash. Like, it's a huge transition in our lifetime of the traditional oil industry, where all that energy comes from to move things, whether that's trucking, passenger cars. That's a whole vertical, massive industry that's getting coupled with the grid, and that transitions opportunities just everywhere. It's no different than the internet, right? In a sense, being created, the internet created new ways to sell and do things. We're now EVs, in a sense, in this new energy transition. We have a technology that is allowing us to cross things that before were separate, and we're going to have opportunity there. It's just inevitable.
Right.
And there's lots of it. There's not going to just be one winner. There's going to be lots of us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right. We just got to keep working hard, right?
The complexity comes down to the collaboration of different stakeholders that don't have the same aligned interest, that don't necessarily care about emissions and air pollution and just money. So,
well, that's why we built our company the way we did. I think we said this in the last podcast, but I'll say it again because I think it's really important for everybody in the environmental sector to hear. And I steal it straight off of 50 Years website, a venture fund. Mr. Burns' principle is the key to environmental impact having impact. So you can have the best environmental idea ever, but if it doesn't work economically, you're only going to get the environmentalists who are willing to suffer. Like Martin and Mark, the co-founders of Tesla, that when they started Tesla, they used to joke, like they have a presentation from back in the day, and it's like these people in little EVs, because EVs existed before Tesla, and they were suffer cars is what they called them. They were like uncomfortable, golf cart examples. They weren't cool, they weren't sexy, they weren't fast. No car person would want to own one. And they were like, we need to change that paradigm if EVs are going to go past it. We have to make them cool to a car guy. Not just a guy who's, wants to ride his bike, but he's suffering in his car today because he couldn't ride his bike, and he's like, got a LEED certified house. Like there's that small subset of people, but for us to really have that chasm crossing experiences we're talking about, you have to economically work and get, the people who don't really care about the environment, the thing they care about is money. Most people really do care about that. If you can't do that, we don't succeed. Yeah. As an industry.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. We're just past an hour of recording. Is there anything else you guys want to wrap up with, or maybe shout out the website and where we can find you guys?
David, you take it.
Yeah, take your website.
etcelectric.com for our energy management system, and murbly.com, murbly.com for our educative platform. So if you live in an apartment and want some tools to help convince your property owner to get on with charging, go visit this website. A lot of case studies as well available.
And then I guess we'll plug Orange again. So yeah, just go to orangecharger.com if you're looking for a cost-effective way to scale charging in your multifamily property. Everything from HOAs to apartment complexes all the way down to duplexes. So
Their listeners should know us by now.
maybe we've only been on once. Right?
They did the initial, and that's what got me.
Yeah, we did a.
Someone found us.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, this is episode 3. Yeah.
Well, and I'm glad your listeners are stoked on us, and we'll keep keep the conversation going, and keep collaboration in the industry hopefully alive and well, so we can solve these problems together.
Yeah.
I think
You
that's
guys
a good
are always
spot.
welcome
Yeah,
on. Honestly, we love having you guys on. So
Definitely.
awesome.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Yeah, thanks to the Orange team and David for joining us, and we'll see everybody on the next episode.